Hey everyone, welcome to TechCrunch Live, where we help founders build better venture-backed businesses. We do this by talking to the founders and the investors that invested in them on how they work together, where they came from, and what decisions they make to keep the business running together. I'm your host, Matt Burns, and I'm so excited about this episode. In preparation for it, we were talking to Nina Akogjian from Index, and she explained that she wanted to do a behind-the-scenes look at raising a Series A, and that sounds great for me. That's exactly the type of content we want for TCL. So today's show is going to be a little different. We're going to start the episode out with Akhilesh Bapu from DeepScribe giving a shortened version of the pitch that he used to raise his $30 million Series A. And we'll speak to what prep he did, the due diligence from Index, and what it was like to close the round. Then at the end of the show, we're going to do a pitch feedback session with 3 different startups, and the instructions to apply for that are in Hopin. Now, this show is streaming in a lot of different services, but we hope you can join us in Hopin, where you can leave comments, ask questions, and talk to TechCrunch staff. And for the first time today, we're going to try this. I hope it works. We're going to take audience questions for the pitch feedback session as well. So make sure you're in there. But that's enough business for today. Let's get right into the episode. Let's introduce Nina Akogjian, partner at Index Venture, where she focuses on venture and growth investments in enterprise, SaaS, vertical SaaS, and AI. Nina, thanks for joining us.
Matt, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I'm very excited to get to talk to you and Akhilesh about, the secret behind the scenes Series A fundraising process. And our commitment is to be as transparent and helpful as we can, because I know from the outside, oftentimes you read about these rounds in, term sheet and TechCrunch, and you ask yourself, wow, how did this company raise that much money? So we're going to do everything we can today to help share how it actually happened. But the real star of the show today is Akhilesh. So Akhilesh, I'd love to turn it over to you, maybe have you introduce yourself, and then, go through the first couple of slides of the Series A pitch deck that you shared with me last summer.
Yeah, absolutely, Nina. So if I can get the slides up, I can get started. But just a brief intro. My name is Akhilesh. I'm one of the founders of DeepScribe. We started the company in 2017. I don't have much of a career because we started so early, but in the past, I was an intern at Apple, and then also spent some time doing NLP research at the Berkeley AI Research Lab, which actually spun into what the tech looks like at DeepScribe. So that's a little bit about me. And I'll run through the pitch. It'll be about a couple minutes, and I'll stop at the end and we can kind of dig in.
Before you start, I want to ask one question to set the scene.
Yeah.
Tell us briefly when you gave this pitch and why DeepScribe was raising this round.
Absolutely. So we started raising our round in the first week of August of 2021. So it was roughly about 4 months ago. And in terms of why we were raising the round, we were at this trajectory as a company where we had gotten a semblance of product market fit, and we had proven our product out. We had about 200 or so live customers on the platform at the time, and we've grown a lot since. But that's kind of where we were, and we were excited about just bringing DeepScribe to more customers. And we were looking for the best partners to get us there, not just in the short term, but in the long term as well. We have, and I'll get into this when we go to deck. We have a long term vision of what we want to do and what we want and how we want to impact healthcare. We wanted to find the right partner that really bought into that vision and understood into that. So that's why we went out and raised this round, and we're glad we found Nina.
And then just for sake of transparency, what was removed from the deck we're seeing today that Nina saw when you pitched her?
Yeah, so the primary thing is metrics. So our metrics are not public yet. So those are removed. So, and you'll see that when we go over the traction slides. You'll see X's in place of the numbers. You'll also not see our competitive landscape. You won't see the team in depth. You won't see our COGS and sort of the value proposition and the customer list and things like that. Those are still pretty private, and hopefully we'll be able to disclose them in the next year or so. But those are the main things we took out of the deck.
Great, fantastic. Well, I think the scene is set. Why don't you take it away? Give us that pitch.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. So I'll start off with talking about our mission. So at DeepScribe, we're bringing the joy of care back to medicine. And if you can go to the next slide for me, I'll talk about the problem. So the main problem we're solving is that physicians are spending almost half of their day not in front of patients or not thinking about their patients, but actually in front of their computer writing documentation. And this is because with the advent of EHRs, they're essentially mandated to write down everything that transpires between them and the patient. If you can go to the next slide for me. As a result of this, everyone loses. So on one side, you have physicians with the joy of care being ripped from underneath them, leading to dangerous levels of burnout. And then financially, you have high-skilled workers doing low-skilled jobs. So you have hundreds of billions of dollars that could be put to better use. And then finally, a problem that us as patients can understand is the average all-time low of how much face time you get with your physician. It's a little bit over 90 seconds, which is quite alarming. So if you go to the next slide for me. So the next question you may ask is, why hasn't anybody solved this? And the solution, and the problem isn't that there aren't solutions. There's actually an abundance of solutions in the market. But the main problem is that in order to really solve this, you have to go below the surface and dig deep into what's causing these problems. And the main issue that we found at DeepScribe was healthcare's inability to leverage the data that each patient generates to its advantage. So on the left side here, you see the source of all this data, which is the patient-physician conversation. But by the time the busy, burned-out physician actually writes this down, along with the fact that these EHRs are not really designed optimally for data entry, you get this data set at the end of the tunnel that's incomplete, inaccurate, and sparse. So anytime you want to train a sophisticated AI model on this, you fall flat on your face. And that's kind of what we see in this industry. On one side, you have speech-to-text tools that don't really need this personalized data, but don't make that much of an impact either. They're saving physicians the burden of typing, but not really the burden of documentation. And then on the other hand, you have old-school human scribes, which save physicians a lot of time, but are not scalable. Only 10% of doctors use these. And then if you go to the next slide for me, this is not just documentation in healthcare. This is machine learning in general in healthcare. We've just scratched the tip of the iceberg for what's possible and what isn't possible. And this is all because we just don't have the data. So if you go to the next slide for me. So at DeepScribe, the opportunity we saw is if we're able to capture and structure this information from the source, not only can we solve the problem of documentation, but we can do something much bigger. We can actually create the foundation to solve some of the bigger problems in medicine. And if you go to the next slide for me, you'll see that that's exactly what we built with DeepScribe. So from the ground up, we designed it on the front end to be an iPad, Apple Watch app, or iPhone app that can listen to the patient and doctor talk. It can transcribe it, can summarize it, and inject it into the EHR. And this product saves physicians on average 3 hours a day. But on the back end, we're actually structuring and creating a data set to fuel the next wave of machine learning in healthcare. And if you go to the last slide, to kind of sum it all up in a nutshell, we've grown compellingly fast since we launched this product and we cracked this problem. And to date, we launched the product in 2020. We started with a little over 0 customers. And today we're proud to say we're one of the leading medical scribe providers in the country. So we're excited about this growth. We're excited about the partnership with Index. And I'll hand it back over to you, Matt, to go through the rest of the pitch.
That was great. How many times did you give that pitch?
Too many to count. Probably over 100.
To customers, to recruits, to investors.
Right.
Oh yeah, at least 5 times a day.
How many VCs do you think you emailed before you found somebody to lead this round?
So we were very deliberate about the process. Our Series A and seed pitch were very, very different. With the Series A, we had a lot of traction going in, and we also were a little bit seasoned from our previous rounds. So we kept the list short. We started with the tier 1s first, and we probably emailed about 12 investors first. And by email, I don't mean that we reached out to them. We actually got interest through our other investors. And that we found was the best way to actually go about the process. And one of those 12 was Index. So we got a conversation with Index in roughly 2 weeks into the process. And we can talk a little bit later about what exactly we did as part of that process, but that's how many people we emailed.
Yeah. So Nina, how did a DeepScribe come into your view?
Yeah, so as Akhilesh mentioned, one of their seed investors actually had read an article that I had written on voice and AI. And it's a seed investor that has worked with other partners at my firm. And he had reached out and said, hey, this seems right up your alley, very much in your thesis. Would you like to meet them? Mm-hmm. And he gave me just very high level bullet points on what the company was doing, why they were special, the team and the traction. And having that context up front, it made me immediately prioritize the meeting and say, oh yeah, this seems awesome. I would love to meet them.
Yeah. So is that normal then, that you get leads from your network rather than cold emails?
Yeah, so I'd say it's a combination of many things. I'd say probably 50% of the deals that I've done at Index, and I'd say broadly the Index team, is either through referrals of other entrepreneurs that have their friends raising, seed investors, angel investors, downstream and solo GPs. And then, the other 50% is a combination of cold emails. We read every cold email that is sent to us. We truly do. We also send cold emails ourselves. If we read about an interesting company or try to go through somebody that we know for a warm intro. And so all of those avenues certainly work. I'd say the best is the warm intro via an investor or, another entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, you take a look at DeepScribe here, right? And Oculus didn't have much before this. He was at Apple. So what about somebody from Apple emailing you, or college professor, or somebody that did not have a network already started? Does that work as well?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you can write a compelling email, which is short, to the point, and why you think this is a right fit for the person you are emailing. I mean, think about the fact that somebody probably has 30 seconds to read the email. So you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward and really nail it up front. If you write like 5 paragraphs and a pitch deck, oftentimes it's just very hard to get to like why it's exciting. And so I think having the content up front that really aims to speak to the audience you're trying to reach, like an investor, is really, really helpful.
Yeah. So Oculus, what did you do? Describe your cold email.
Well, he was lucky because his seed investor introed us.
There you go. Right. But then the other investors you're emailing, did any of those come back?
So we actually did not reach out to a single investor over cold email. So Michael from B Partners, 1984, Chinwan Ventures, and a couple of our close investors emailed on behalf of us to Index, Sequoia, and other tier 1 investors. I dropped a name there, but I shouldn't have. But yeah, we emailed those investors, and our investors emailed those investors on behalf of us, and that's kind of how we got the intro. So no cold emails written on our part. We, as founders, had to write the typical blurb. So we had to come up with our North Star metrics, what we thought from our perspective would attract these investors the most. So it usually starts with top line revenue and where we were expecting to be in revenue. For us, COGS is very important. So how much money we're spending to deliver the service, that was one of our metrics. And then the other thing that really stood out for us is the team. So who we built, who's leading the AI efforts, who's leading the customer success efforts, who's leading growth. So that was kind of the third point. So just having a very short, probably 1 paragraph max blurb was the main amount of work we had to do. And it sounds trivial, but we spent a lot of time on it just to make sure that it hit the right points.
Yeah. And then Nina, take us inside Index. What does your due diligence look like?
Okay. So just taking a step back, if you're an entrepreneur pitching a VC firm, the thing that you want that investor to walk out of your pitch or Zoom meeting with is an incredible soundbite that they can repeat to their partners and get the whole firm fired up. So in the case of DeepScribe, I had met numerous companies in this space. And the thing that struck me as unique of DeepScribe was not only their technical expertise in specifically natural language processing, but how much work they had done to ramp up on domain expertise of actually understanding a doctor's day-to-day. And that was because Akhilesh's family and Matt, his co-founder's family, worked as doctors and they had been exposed to that. So when I walked out of the meeting, I went immediately to one of my partners and I was like, finally, I found the company that is doing the right approach to leveraging best-in-class NLP to one of the largest markets out there. I mean, this dictation market for doctors in the US is like a $30 billion market. Microsoft bought Nuance for almost $20 billion. So there is a lot of money being spent on this problem. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your investor gets fired up, has exactly the 3 or 4 bullet points. In addition to the team and the market, I was so excited about their traction. They had grown incredibly fast in 1 year with a very lean team. And so it was clear product market fit. Then what happens is, we come up with a list of key questions that we want to go deeper on. So what is the business model? How do you scale? Let's talk to your customers. Let's do references. I actually called one of the professors that Akhilesh had worked with at Berkeley and asked him about Akhilesh, which I don't even know if Akhilesh knows, but so we do a lot of. Okay. We do a lot of customer calls, references on the entrepreneurs. And then honestly, Matt, it's really spending time with the team. So I like to see entrepreneurs in different environments. Pre-COVID, I would go spend the day at their office and just see what the atmosphere is like, how they run their meetings. Akhilesh and Matt, even though, this deal happened during COVID, we met for coffee, and that was really a game changer for me, getting to meet them in person. In addition to that, by the way, we refresh all of our competitive diligence. So because I had met a lot of their competitors, I went back, I looked at all the decks I'd seen. I tried to follow up with other investors to see how they were doing. I wanted to make sure I was backing the right horse in the race. And so we do a lot of that. And then finally, we ask ourselves as investors, because we have, $1 billion plus venture fund. So if you think about the math that has to happen for a investment to return an entire venture fund, you have to believe that this can be, a $250 million ARR business, approximately plus or minus one day. So I did the bottoms up analysis of what do I have to believe for that to happen? How many doctors do they have to sell to? What is the average selling price? Do they have to get into a new product roadmap or, a new product line? What do you have to believe in terms of what the competition does? And all of those things kind of lead you to a conclusion where you're willing to take the bet and jump in and do an investment. And that's what happened in this case.
That sounds like a lot. And I know it is a lot because that's great, right? But how long does it take? And is there anything that entrepreneurs can do to expedite the process?
Yeah, so we try to work super quickly because we know that there are other investors that give term sheets in 24 hours that don't do a lot of this diligence. So things that entrepreneurs can do to help us. Number one, anticipate a lot of the questions in the pitch. So as you start to talk to investors, you'll notice that certain questions keep coming up. Having an excellent answer on market size and competitive landscape, I think proactively is really great. Third, what I've seen some entrepreneurs do is instead of flooding their customers with 50 investors that are all calling them in 24 hours or 48 hours, they actually summarize customer call notes and will share those as step one of the process. I think making time to fundraise and being very intentional about a timeline and being very clear is also a great thing you can do. So, with Akhilesh and Matt, when I first got the intro, I was actually on vacation and I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to be back in a week. Can we meet then? And they were like, Nina, actually the process is going to move quite fast and we'd love to meet you sooner. And so I met them, I think that same day. And so having a very clear timeline, I think is also very important. And finally, just be prepared, right? Make sure you have your numbers in order. Make sure you have, your future plan for what you're going to use for the fundraising. It doesn't have to be super detailed. By the way, if anybody asks you for a 5-year model, you should definitely, that should definitely be a red flag, because I don't think any venture stage company should be able to predict their revenue for 5 years, but have a general 12-month plan. And I think those things will go a long way.
Yeah. Akhilesh, now, what preparation did you do to prepare for this? Did you talk to anybody or hire any services?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the biggest help in raising this round comes from our current investors or investors before we raised our Series A. So our lead investor, B Partners, the lead investor for the second round, Stage 2 Capital, those two were awesome in helping us prepare. And all our other insiders were great as well. So every week.
I want to pause there. What specifically did they do for you?
Yeah, so the primary thing is helping with the pitch deck, right? The pitch deck is kind of your hallstone for your raise. So you want to make sure that you nail it. So we started with just a raw story session of my co-founder and I just getting together and just telling the story of DeepScribe, and they would just poke holes in it, right? They would be like, all right, these two things don't add up. Let's elaborate more on that, get more specific there. And then when it comes to presenting the numbers, right? Where do we want to be as a company in 2 years? What's the bigger vision? Getting all that just nailed down is highly important. As founders, especially going from the seed stage, you're just thinking about the day-to-day. You're thinking about today, tomorrow, maybe next month, at the most next year. But the biggest help was them pulling us back and saying, hey, where do you want the company to be in 5 years? What's your big vision? And if you kind of paid attention to the pitch I gave a few minutes ago, the first few slides are about the big picture. Where do you see healthcare in 5 years? What's your perspective on it? And nailing that is as important as, the other metrics. So that's what they helped us a lot with. That was kind of the first step. Once we got the deck down, the next step was getting our financials in order. So as Nina mentioned, even though you don't need a 5-year financial model, that's sort of what we ended up doing anyways, maybe because we were naive at the time. We'll probably keep doing it because it's just kind of the standard. But all our financials, top line revenue, bottom line, how much is implemented ARR, how much is contracted ARR, who are the clients we have, what does that trajectory look like, what are the risks to hitting those goals, both top line and bottom line. So we had this huge model that was probably 30, 40 tabs on an Excel spreadsheet, and we presented an executive summary. So for that, we actually worked with a few good consulting firms to kind of help us put together that model. I'll throw a name out there, Cruise Consulting. They're just awesome at that kind of stuff. So they helped us prepare that. That was probably the second thing. And then the last thing was just the pitch, the dynamics, how we're talking, how we're pitching. Did we show a demo at the beginning, middle, or end? So we did a lot of pitch practice. We probably did 3 to 4 sessions a week of pitch practice for about a month before we went out to market.
That's good information. Now your pitch deck is beautiful. Did you make it or did you pay somebody?
No, absolutely not. I could not have designed that. We used an offshore designer who's awesome. And we are scrappy founders at the core. So that's why we went offshore. The whole thing costed probably around $300. I think it was around $10-20 per slide. And it was good. I think she did a good job. It was a contractor, and working with pitch deck designers isn't as easy as just giving a framework and having them design it. You have to go through a bunch of iterations. I mean, we were up at midnight just going back and forth saying like, hey, we want the circle moved a few inches to the right, or we want different colors here. This animation is off. So it takes a lot of work to do that. And I don't know, maybe Nina can speak to how often investors value design in decks, but just for myself and my co-founder, we just wanted everything to be pristine and pixel perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does make a first impression. I've also seen like a 100-page deck for a Series A. I think the point is you want the story to be told, and if certain visuals make your story more articulate, then you should definitely invest in that.
Yeah, when I look at hundreds, if not thousands a year, and there is a big difference between the two. But sometimes you look at the early stage companies, the bootstraps or the seed stage, and there has to be a line there. Where do you draw that line at, Nina? Like, where should somebody pay for a pitch deck and where shouldn't they?
Look, I mean, I think you always think about the value of your time. And if you just know, like, you suck at making slides, which I also do, I think if you can write the narrative and say, hey, somebody please turn this into slide deck for $300, I think that's a no-brainer, even to do at seed. What I will tell you I have seen at the seed stage, which I love, is actually an investment memo describing, it's very similar to like an S1 of a public company where you're like, here's the problem we're solving, here's the market size, here's why we're different, et cetera. That also works. So it's just kind of your style. Now that is a lot harder to do like a presentation on Zoom because you don't have visual cues. And so you probably need slides at a certain point. But yeah, no brainer to invest if it's $300 and, saves you a bunch of hours and a lot of pain.
Yeah. And then you get people like us saying, oh, wow, that looks great. You should be so proud of that, where you're just smiling inside.
Or you raise $30 million and you're like,
you raised $30 million. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you started the process in August and you announced it in January. When did the actual close happen?
September.
We closed the round officially in mid-October.
Oh.
Okay. Mid-October. So take us through what it was like to close that. Had you ever closed a large round like this before?
Well, we had closed our seed round in the past, and that was mostly a learning experience for us. I think it took a longer time than a month. I mean, so most of the close, to give you an idea, we got the term sheet at the end of August. So we had run the process in about 30 days. But the large part of the closing was rallying the other inside investors who had pro rata, who didn't have pro rata, and kind of giving them allocation. That part takes a lot of work, and negotiating with the people that have been by your side the whole time is always a challenge. And probably if I were to name the 5 things I least like to do as a founder, that would probably be at the top of the list. But that's kind of what we had to do. We had to get the allocations finalized. We had to work heavily with legal to draft all the documentation in terms of the round docs. There were some side letters here and there. So overall, that process took 30 days in order to go from term sheet signed to money in bank.
Yeah, I think 30 days is pretty standard. Akhilesh, maybe you should also talk about some of the angels that you brought into the round and your thinking around that.
Yeah, that was also really exciting. So we were lucky enough to get Alex Wang, who's the CEO of Scale AI, who had built $1 billion company, I think at age 22, 23. And then we also got Dylan Field, who is the CEO of Figma. So that was one of the things that we were really excited about working with Index on is just their network of founders. I mean, they've had a ton of successful portfolio companies that are in very similar spaces to ours. So getting founders like that on board to invest is just a great sounding board for us. Every time we have a challenge, they've probably seen something like that before. And it's not that they know how to solve it. They've solved it in the past and they've solved it in the most optimal way possible. And one of the things that Nina kind of said that also got us excited is calling us a Scale AI for healthcare, given our human in the loop component and given how similar of companies we are in terms of bringing tech-enabled service and scaling that. So that was also good, and it's good to have Alex Wang behind us and kind of supporting us in those efforts.
Thank you for that. Now we have a question from the audience here. Eric asks, I noticed that your pitch deck is very open-ended, leaving lots of room for a lot of questions. How did you narrow down what to use and what to leave out? And go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And you saw probably 25% of the entire pitch deck. And I promise we probably answer the questions you have as we go to the end and talk about the metrics and traction. But it was mostly through just trial and error. You know, we practiced with our insider investors first. We pitched them this deck probably hundreds of times, and they were like, hey, you know, what was your revenue on X date? And we were like, maybe we should add that there. And then another investor may have been like, what's your revenue like last quarter or the quarter before? And then we were like, okay, maybe we should stop with the big numbers and we should just show a graph of the revenue over time. So you kind of just iterate over that as you go through that process. You don't want to do too much iteration as you're talking to actual investors that you're pitching to that you haven't really met before. And so the iteration we did there was probably putting the demo at the front rather than in the middle or end, which was how we started. So we made little tweaks like that once we were actually pitching.
Now, look, you actually closed the $30 million round. But what mistakes did you make along the way? What do you do differently?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that may be small in someone like Nina's size, but was a big thing for us was when we did the product demo. So the product demo, if you kind of look at our whole deck, it's all about the story. It's about these abstract elements of what we're doing. But the product demo kind of all ties it together and shows everybody that what we built was actually real. But we say that usually for the end. One thing that we changed in the middle of the process was actually starting off with the demo. So instead of showing the first few slides, we just kind of talked through what we would have on those slides, but as we were showing the product. And that we found was pretty powerful. And that was something we're really glad we changed. Another thing is probably being a little bit more, I guess, less specific on who we wanted to raise from in the beginning. So we, as I mentioned earlier, reached out to 12 investors, but I think we could have probably added a few to those to that bunch to kind of not just get more eyes on our deck and more eyes in the room on what we were doing, but also just more feedback on what we were doing. And every investor is unique and what they can add. So would have loved to kind of learn more about that. So that's probably a couple. I wouldn't call that a mistake, but it's probably something we would do a little bit in our next race.
We have a couple moments left, but I want to go back to talking about the demo because that's kind of changed in the age of COVID. And Nina, how have you adapted to seeing demos and what have entrepreneurs done?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think it's been a lot easier for entrepreneurs to do demos over Zoom versus having to come in, plug in their laptop, pray to God that AirPlay works and all of that. So it's actually very seamless with the like just sharing your screen and going. So I think a lot of investors have been very acclimated to that. And I think it's excellent. And I think as much as you can show investors what you've built and get them excited about it, and they really pick up on your tone when you're doing the demo, it really goes a long way in adding color to, otherwise an hour-long Zoom call.
Yeah. So, Nina, we need to end with you. But before we go to our pitch feedback session, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs raising their Series A right now?
Okay. Number one, when you start the pitch, you need to, in the first 30 seconds, say what you're working on and why it's a huge opportunity. If you're talking for like 5 minutes without really hitting home on that, then you kind of lose the investor. It takes a while. Number two, I think you should be very upfront about your traction. It's okay if you don't have, $1 million+ of annual recurring revenue. I've been seeing Series A's done with 0 revenue. I've been seeing Series A's done with $3 million of revenue. Number three, run it like a sales process. So know your number, know how much you want to raise, call your founder friends before, figure out what the valuations are, figure out, how VCs negotiate, if they negotiate, what their process is. And lastly, feel like the owner in the conversation, because you are diligencing the VC as much as the VC is diligencing you. So, you're picking a partner. It's almost like interviewing a co-founder. You want to make sure you take your time, run the process, don't get, bullied into signing a term sheet in 24 hours, and really feel empowered to make the right decision. That's the advice that I would give.
Yeah. Number 4 is really neat there. So you need to be strong in your convictions and follow through and everything, right? And don't get bullied.
Yeah.
What have you seen that happen recently?
Oh yeah, a lot of entrepreneurs will get term sheets and it's like expires tomorrow, signed by tomorrow. And then they get like all panicked and they're like, oh my God, but I really wanted to talk to these people, or I'm going to burn the bridge. And I'm like, well, just call that investor and say, look, I really want to work with you, but out of respect for the conversations that I've already started with other folks, I'd love to see those through. Can I give you an answer by Friday? And I think most people that are reasonable and want to do the right thing by you will say yes. So I think you should feel empowered to do that.
Well, this has been great. And I really appreciate you guys coming on and giving the background on raising a Series A. It's been very enlightening. And I hope a lot of people learn things. And we are taking questions from the audience now. I noticed that we did that once. And if you'd like to do that, you need to be on Hopin so that we can read them. So there's instructions on Twitter Spaces and Facebook Live on how to join Hopin as well. So we're going to bring up 3 companies to do a pitch feedback session. Now, these companies were told moments ago that they're going to be presenting. They're not using a slide deck. They're only talking. It's a 2-minute pitch followed by 4 minutes of questions and answers and advice from us. So with that, you guys ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right, great. So first we have Angela from Sherlock Financial. Angela, are you there? There's always a delay here.
No worries.
We should fix this, but we don't. Angela, are you there now?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There we are. Yes, very good. Thank you. How are you?
Good. How are all of you guys?
Good. Thanks. All right. Well, you have 2 minutes to present Sherlock Financial. Take it away.
Sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Mascarenas, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sherlock Financials, a digital wallet that helps you get rewarded for your daily spending. Have you ever been at the cashier, looked at your wallet, and wondered, which card should I use to get the most points and rewards? At Sherlock, we want to solve this problem. We want to help consumers find the best credit cards and optimize their wallets for maximum points and rewards. Sherlock works in 3 easy steps. Add all of your credit cards to the Sherlock digital wallet and use it to pay both in-store and online. Sherlock's algorithm works behind the scenes to always select the best credit cards that gives you the most points and rewards. Start earning and watch your rewards and savings grow. Over time, Sherlock surfaces insights into your daily spending, referring the best credit cards to sign up for to maximize your spending. Sherlock provides value by innovating at the transaction level, helping consumers to earn free money through a smart digital wallet. We are currently building out our MVP and plan to launch in just 6 months. We plan to make money through credit card referrals, referring customers to credit card companies, and through a subscription fee to use our wallet. Sherlock is automating what credit card hackers do, using data-driven finance to help consumers find the best cards and optimize at the cashier. We are currently building out our waitlist through online communities like credit card churning groups, FIRE, couponing groups, and financial literacy groups. But in the future, plan to do partnerships and SEO. We're targeting profitability by year 3. However, that can get accelerated based off of customer acquisition. As a team, we have experience working on digital wallets, open banking, and automated credit algorithms. Thank you. I'm Angela Mascarenas, CEO of Sherlock Financials, a digital wallet helping you get rewarded for your daily spending.
Angela, that was great. And audience, if you have any questions, please put them in Hopin. Thank you. All right, Nina, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Angela, thank you so much for sharing this business with us. And I thought that pitch was excellent. You hit on value proposition, like second sentence. You talked a little bit about the background of the team. You made the pain point feel very understandable, of giving an example of being at a grocery store at a cashier register. And I thought you did a good job talking about potential monetization channels for your business. The things I probably would have added is number 1, like a why now, right? So something around the average person has X many credit cards. You know, the rewards on credit cards have been better than ever before. The financial situation or the ideal customer profile that we're going after is somebody who is 18 to 25 who, is still building their economic wealth or whatever it is. So I probably would have added a little bit on why now, market size, and ideal customer profile. And then lastly, I would say if you're pitching over Zoom, I know it's really hard to memorize a pitch, but try to just like connect with the audience. Try not to read, just try to make it like engaging, as if you're telling the best story ever of your life. And so that people can feel the energy, which we certainly did. But those are my comments. Akhilesh, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of follow up on that, first off, Angela, that was an awesome pitch. And it's really hard to keep pitches within 2 minutes and also hit all those points. So you did a great job of that. To echo on Nina, as a founder, I know exactly what it's like to have something pulled up, like kind of your script pulled up on the screen and sort of go back and forth. So making it natural is always good. It's hard to do without slides because you don't have a point of focus, but it's something that I think could be improved a little bit. The other thing was the market opportunity, which kind of ties into the why now that Nina just mentioned. You did a good job by making the problem extremely relatable, but how big is this market? Who's looking to try something like this? What does adoption look like? I know you guys are still in the POC stage and we'll have a beta out in 6 months, but that's probably something I would add to just put a little bit of realism into what it takes to deliver this and just how big the opportunity is.
Angela, why don't you talk to us about the why now and the opportunity?
Sure. So around 200 Americans currently have credit cards today, with the average consumer actually holding between 5 to 6 cards, which was a huge surprise to myself. And so credit cards also tend to be lifestyle driven. So depending on your lifestyle, if you're single, you might be looking for travel and hotel credit cards. It changes over time. And so the product market fit for someone with their credit cards, like it doesn't have that long of a lifespan. And so for those 2 reasons, along with data-driven finance becoming a thing, I think that there's a huge opportunity to make your personal finances more data-driven and almost as if you have a financial advisor, but within this credit card space.
Yeah, that's great. And are you looking to raise money right now, or are we just building this out?
Yeah, we're looking to currently raise money for our pre-seed round. And so we're speaking to investors and open to taking any chats from this opportunity as well.
Great. And how can people find you? What's your URL?
Sure, SherlockFinancials.com.
All right, great.
It's great.
Yeah, where did the name? We got 1 minute left. Where did the name come from?
Sure. I mean, I think trying to figure out your personal finances is really hard. And so I love the character Sherlock and using deduction and like reasoning to sniff out like the problem. And so I wanted to bring that into financial services to help people save money and find ways to stretch the dollars that they do have.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Angela, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you participating. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Good luck.
Okay. That is a good one. Credit cards, stupid credit cards. I have 2 kids and the credit cards are used for them, not for me anymore. Okay, so we got one more. We have 2 more actually. Oscar from Care on the Way. Oscar, are you there, sir? We're gonna Care on the Way from Oscar. There we are. He's loaded in. We're gonna present this as soon as he's live. Oscar, you there? You're muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we're on. Can you turn on your camera for me? There we are.
How are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's fun doing this stuff live, right?
Yeah.
All
Pretty excited
right.
about this.
Well, tell us about Care on the Way. You have 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Oscar Caicedo, and I'm the CEO and founder of Care on the Way. You might ask yourself, what's Care on the Way? It's a mobile application that bridges the gap between caregivers and families of individuals with developmental disabilities. So now, why do you think there's a problem? Or why is it so hard to find care for somebody? Because realistically, there's no easy way to find care. If you go through a government agency, it's pretty difficult. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks, and they assign you one person, and that's what they call a respite care. Now, if you go to a private or any applications, a lot of them ask you to pay in advance or upfront for the cost of a monthly subscription. And last but not least, there's an insufficient number of applications or services solely dedicated to connecting families to caregivers that can handle individuals with developmental disabilities. Now, what makes us different, you think? We're really looking into providing caregivers and not sitters, which is a huge difference between one and another one. We offer a 14-day trial, no payment or credit cards up front. One of our biggest assets is that we're connected to local nonprofits around our area. That's to find the parents, and to find the caregivers. We're really working with career centers from schools around the area as well, so we can provide that work experience. So if they decide to go to be a speech therapist or a registered nurse, they can get that experience and hopefully advance in their careers. And one of the other things that we actually are doing, which is pretty different than the other ones, is that we actually provide the ability to filter caregivers by different, but you are able to filter them by different scales or languages or rates. So you, as a parent, you get to choose who you want to go with.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much, Oscar. So I'm going to start with this one. Why are you doing this? What's the motivation behind the project?
The motivation in the project is, it's a little backstory. I was in a car accident a couple of years, about 5 years ago, and my stepmom needed care, and we couldn't find care for her at all. No private, we couldn't afford it, and we couldn't find it locally through the city. So that's one part. I have also family that is on the spectrum, and after going through all this, I started putting the 2 and 2 together, and why something like this could make a huge difference, and thinking that the autism spectrum is really increasing since the 1970s to the last census from the CDC. It has increased about 241%. So it went from 1 in 10,000 in 1970 to 1 in 44 in 2021. So that really tells you how big the spectrum is really becoming prevalent in our society.
Absolutely. Nina, over to you.
Oscar, I absolutely admire and love the mission of what you're doing. I think it is mission critical, but also not only does it change people's lives, I think it could be a really great business and a great business model. Tell me a little bit about how you think about screening the care, right? Because you want to give a great experience to your patients. So how do you make sure that the caregivers you're bringing into your marketplace are up to the standards that you would want your patients to have?
Every caregiver has to go through a background check. There's no way that you can join the app unless you pass a background check. And besides that, it just doesn't happen when you start, but we're going through the servers where you will be monitored as the days go by. So if something happens, we'll get notified immediately. And then of course we will look into what the cost was, and if it's a cost for termination, we'll go ahead and do it. We really rely, or we really want or believe into that quality is essential to be a great business. And not just that, but we prefer quality over quantity for sure.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Akhilesh.
Yeah, that pitch was good. I think what Matt kind of dove into after the pitch was really powerful. Your backstory as well as the stats you kind of gave. I would actually start with that and kind of work that into the pitch, because that makes a big impact, and that's kind of also how we start the DeepScribe pitch, kind of with the personal story. It really helps. So I would definitely do that. The other question I had was in terms of actual finances and traction. How do you sort of make money? What does your customer footprint look like right now?
So when it comes to our business model is based on memberships. It's based on, we take a percentage out of each booking. And if there is, we want to be fair for everybody. If there is a cancellation, right, depending on the time, we are actually charging a certain amount either to the parent or the caregiver. And out of that, we also take a little percentage out of that. So that's our business models as of now. And sorry, what was the second part of it?
The second part of it was what does your traction look like right now?
So the traction right now, we are getting signups. I'm not fully concentrating on the B2C. I'm going a different route than most probably companies will go. I'm going from B to B to C. So I'm going really into the nonprofits around the area. So, I can go in and they basically, they can vouch for me. So I'm in talks with just with the local organization or the state organization here I'm in California. So the state organization, one of the regional centers in the Bay Area, as well as there's a couple nonprofits in the city that I've been talking to. They are excited. They really said we haven't seen anything like this before. So what we're trying to do is I'm trying to help them come into the 2020 instead of us going back to the 1990s when it comes to using, faxing and doing everything on the slower side. So for the local organizations, it will take them about, like I said, 2 to 4 weeks to find someone to come and care. With us, if the background check, which is usually what takes the longest, depending on where you lived in the country, it can take 3 to 7 days. Yeah. So after that, then you have this whole list of caregivers that you can choose from.
Yeah, Oscar, this is fantastic, sir. How can people find your service?
Our website is www.careontheway.com, and my name is Oscar again. My email address is oscar@careontheway.com. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach me. I'll be more than happy to help.
Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Well, we have one more, and that the Care on the Way, that is a huge thing. My wife was a hospice nurse for a long time, and it's just so hard to find that services. Yeah. Okay, so we have one more. I'm going to butcher this name. I'm very sorry. So when you get on, you're going to have to correct me. Iridium, and then the company is Sensei. Is that correct?
Orindam, and the company is Sensei. Yes.
All right. All right. We got there. All right, sir, you have 2 minutes to present your company. Go ahead.
So very good afternoon, all of you. So I'm Orindam. I'm CEO and co-founder of Sensei, which is a B2B SaaS platform tackling the financial literacy crisis. Now, I've been a lifelong journalist, and during the 2007-2008 credit crisis, I was writing a column at the Wall Street Journal called The Herd on the Street. And as I dug deeper every day, I discovered the deep-rooted problem was the lack of adequate financial literacy among many Americans. And the bad financial decisions that they took, like even today, according to the Federal Reserve, most Americans don't even have $400 in the emergency funds. That is a problem that we're actually solving. Now, furthermore, many financial services firms like Broadridge and UNest, which are our clients, they needed financial education as part of their content marketing strategy. So my team and I, we built Sensei, which is a B2B SaaS platform, which comprises the world's largest financial education content library in English and in Spanish, and smart tools for sending email campaigns and social media sharing, as well as the ability to brand the content on one's website. We help financial services firms, financial professionals to educate their customers. We are able to also help schools and workplaces to educate their kids. In the last 12 months, we have won over 60 paid clients with a combined current ARR of $500,000, including names such as Broadridge, Olive Group, Círculo de Crédito in Mexico, UNEST, and a dozen banks and credit unions. I'm also proud of the fact that ever since we've launched, we've had 95% customer retention rate. Our customers love us because we provide them with articles, videos, quizzes, both in English and Spanish. Like recently, we signed a deal with UNEST for $80,000. It will go up to $250,000. We're also providing financial literacy to 32,000 workers of Land Rover, Jaguar, as well as the military as well. So that's what we do.
You took full advantage of that 2 minutes. You jam-packed that with everything. I loved it. All right, Nina, let's start with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I love the pitch. I love the energy. I love the personal story, the soundbite around the pain point, what you experienced, as well as why you had a front row view to solve this problem. In addition, you were very clear on the value proposition, the target customers, the traction. The only thing I would add is probably a little bit more on the product. I know it's so hard in 2 minutes, but I was wondering until the very end, was it an app? Was it video? Was it some like metaverse financial school thing? So I would I just put like the solution a little bit more up front. And then the other thing is I'd probably try to talk a little bit about why others have failed in the space. You know, there's been like so many different apps, and one's focused on kids, one focused on low income, one focused on college students. And so understanding like what the insights are that will make you shortcut the mistakes I think a lot of others have. But excellent pitch. Love the energy.
Thank you.
Do you want to answer anything from her questions? Anything?
Sure. Number one, it is a web-based application. So, and it's APIs and JavaScript and iframe. So you can basically integrate. The reason others have failed, but we will succeed is because our content is actually, it follows regulatory guidelines and we make it easy to integrate. And the third part is that we actually focus on the engagement of the end users, the financial pain points, rather than, you know, esoteric, this is why credit cards work, this is what you should do. Most people in America, they don't know what they don't know. So our content is focused on storytelling. So you will read our content anyway for entertainment. The byproduct is you learn about finance.
That's great. Oculus, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. This time, I think Nina took both of the points of feedback I was going to give, but I did love the sort of personal story and your career as a journalist, and having worked for the Wall Street Journal. I think it establishes a lot of credibility from the start. But yeah, more details on the product, what exactly it does. I know it's hard to do in 2 minutes, and then why no one has done it before. I mean, this is a well-publicized problem. I've definitely heard about it before, but why are others failing? What's your competitive advantage? I know you just went through it, but that was the 2 points of feedback I had.
Yeah, that's great. That's about all the feedback I had too. It sounds like you've done this before.
Sort of, yes.
Yeah. Are you raising money right now?
Yes, I'm raising $2.5 million. I've already raised $400,000, which has been invested in the business. Cap is 8.5. Convertible note 4%. If either one of you, anyone, all three of you want to invest, hey, it's orindam@sensei.com.
By the way, I would just say if you're at 500K of ARR, I would probably try to raise a larger Series A. I would probably try to raise like $5 to $7 million versus 2.5. You should do the math on where you get to with 2, where you get to with 5.
Okay.
Because it's a huge market, you have clear product market fit, and you could invest more in the team and grow faster. Okay. And I'd be happy to review a pitch deck if you want to email it to me.
Absolutely, I will do.
And then when you close that round, drop me a note.
Will do.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. That was great. And to all the participants, it was a lovely show today. Yeah. So we have a couple things coming up. I'm going to read you a list. Equity Live is tomorrow with Alex, Natasha, and Marianne. And then we have Early Stage. This is our first in-person events in COVID, and we're thrilled to have it in San Francisco. There are a few $250 tickets left, and these are on San Francisco, April 14th. And then lastly, next week, I'm taking the week off, and Brian Heater, TechCrunch hardware editor, is going to be interviewing Bruce Leak of Playground and Jonathan Hurst of Agility about building robotic platforms to helping manual labor. So thank you to everybody once again, and we hope to see you next week.
All right. Thank you.